Is President Trump's squeeze on Iran starting to pay off? The blockade of the Strait of Hormuz hitting day 2, and 47 telling the Post the second round of talks with Iran could be happening over the next 2 days. J.D. Vance telling Bret Baier, our very own, how Iranian negotiators didn't have the authority to agree to Trump's terms and needed to go back to Tehran to get approval. Watch.
Really, the ball is very much in their court. The only thing the Iranians have been able to do, they haven't, of course, beaten us militarily. They've had their military been decimated. They haven't been able to prosecute the case when it comes to weapons of war. What they have done is engage in this act of economic terrorism against the entire world. The President of the United States showed two can play at that game.
And how's this for a petty twist? Democrats and the liberal media sound like they'd rather see Iran come out ahead just so Trump doesn't score a win.
I really don't want to see Bibi Netanyahu or Donald Trump politically strengthened by this war because they are two awful human beings. And so I really find myself torn.
The now deceased supreme leader, who I'm not mourning his death, right, a very bad person, he did have a fatwa in place that said no development of nuclear weapons. The problem is his now second eldest son, Ali Khamenei, doesn't believe in that fatwa.
Donald Trump also told the demented lie in attacking the Pope that Iran wants to, quote, exterminate the world.
Well, Dana, I got to give them credit for honesty. I mean, they really can't decide who they want to win, Iran or America.
It's like hard to say this, but I guess we're going to have to go with Iran.
Yeah, oh well.
This one. Well, you know, now we know. We don't have to guess, and I guess that's fine. I thought that when the vice president revealed that the Iranians couldn't make a deal because they have to go back to Tehran, that's pretty interesting because it means that they probably don't have a way to communicate in a way that doesn't reveal the location because the Ayatollah, you know that guy you keep talking about, maybe he was like, I'll just sit here and we have to do everything by pen and paper at this point. I feel like, you know, in reality shows, which I don't watch a ton of, but in reality shows where they just keep you hanging on, like, and if you stay around to after the next commercial break, then you might find out who did it. That's what I feel like. In the next 2 days, there might be talks. I don't know. We just started the blockade. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of maneuvering going on. China's involved, et cetera. There's, again, as Greg Gutfeld will say, Dana, you're so intelligent because you're saying you don't know what's going to happen.
I know what's going to happen. Trump's going to get angry when it takes 3 days for the gay Ayatollah to say, this is no good or this is good. That's going to be so frustrating.
I think gayness is the least of his worries right now. I think breathing might be higher up on his list, and I'm not quite sure he's doing that.
Yeah.
I think what we're witnessing is weekend at Khamenei's, and it's not going well for either side. You know, it would be like if Kamala Harris were negotiating, because right now we have two sets of people we're negotiating with. The people in the room who don't have any power and the people who are terrified in Tehran who hate the United States so much, they would rather pull Iran down with the rest of the world. And if Kamala Harris were negotiating, we'd have like sober Kamala Harris, where she would be able to explain everything. And then the rosé all day one who would be laughing and talking about falling out of a coconut tree. I do think that J.D. Vance has comported himself well. I hope that the talks go well. I don't have any faith in Iran. I think that they are stubborn. I think that they are murderous. They are incredibly desperate, yet somehow they're not out of missiles. And that makes them more of a force than I think anyone had anticipated. I think the president and the secretary of war thought that this would go as smoothly as the first Iranian incursion and the Venezuela bout did. And we're not seeing that. And to Dana's point, we don't know the terminus. I hope the next round of talks give us more confidence and bring us to a close.
I mean, you do see the light at the end of the tunnel. They have not attacked any of these destroyers in the Strait.
Yep.
Talks do seem to be moving in the right direction, and China does feel pressure. So you can kind of see this thing, how it winds down.
This does dovetail with the Dana theory that this is a sweeps week gambit aimed at the spring ratings book. I think it's good. I think it's very TV of us, and I agree. And since we're talking about TV, can we just acknowledge really quickly, Lawrence O'Donnell talks at all times like he's trying to hold in a fart. I know that's
the
not very
hammering.
adult of me on a serious show of this stature.
So serious.
But when he says Iran and President Trump, I'm like, dude, just let it go. You don't know everybody in this elevator. They'll be off at the next floor. But the Thomas Friedman thing, you have to admire the candor on some level. Okay, because he's flat out saying we're in a nuclear standoff for all intents and purposes. We don't want them to have a nuke. He concedes that's a problem, but says my own political preferences are more important than the existential threat we're dealing with. That's a level of self-absorption that I got to be honest with you. The people in Iran rooting for a settlement right now are not sitting in their caves in fear with their soul in a fetal position going, I just hope it doesn't happen under this Khomeini because he's a dirtbag. If we can get to the midterms, it's embarrassing, man.
Yeah, the market liked day 2 of the blockade, Harold, and it looks like the S&P's recovered all the losses since the beginning of the war.
So a couple of things. The market did. It recovered and continues to because it's believing there's going to be a second meeting and believes that we may find some resolution here. There are 2 goals we're trying to get. And I never liked differing with DP on anything, but I didn't think Vance was particularly effective yesterday. He said that they were inches away from an agreement, but he didn't believe the people in the room were able to settle on an agreement, and they met for 21 hours. This is a 6,000-year-old civilization that feels like their country and what they represent is facing and has an existential threat posed to them. They were not going to solve this in 21 hours. I thought there was progress made there, but I wouldn't have criticized the people there in the room like he did, but maybe that's part of the strategy they have. We have 2 goals here. First, open up the Strait. That's why the market is responding as it is. And 2, the most important is to ensure that they cannot make a nuclear weapon and they can't threaten us or our allies in the region. Now, I said yesterday, the blockade has been a success. It's a success because we are depriving the Iranians of money. Now, it was reported today that a Chinese vessel got through, then it had to come back through. I'm curious as we get some more reporting this evening from some of our reporters and other outlets to figure out what exactly happened there. I do hope that we, the United States, are not cherry picking or deciding who can get through, who cannot get through. It sets an awful precedent for commercial.
It didn't leave an Iranian port. That's why.
Right. So I think it sets. You're probably right, and I trust you. But my point is, this is a bad precedent to set in a commercially important piece of geography. And I hope if the White House and the Department of War are of this position, they need to share with the world and us what the real goal is here. But the blockade, in my estimation, the reason it's so important is that it's depriving them of money. And I'm hopeful that this will force them back to the table.
Up to $434 million a day.
Exactly. $500 million a day they're losing. So finally, the losing the money is great. I don't think all Democrats are rooting for the Iranians. I'm a Democrat. I have a lot of friends who are Democrats. We want the United States to win. I think that what Tom Friedman, I didn't quite understand it fully, but I think he dislikes Trump so much. He doesn't want this to be a victory for Trump. But I want America to win, and that means the president, who's our commander-in-chief, will win as well. Finally, we are probably going to end up, Jesse, and everybody around the table with an agreement between us and the Iranians that's going to look a lot closer to what Obama negotiated several years ago than not. I don't think the Obama deal was as bad as some people think. I won't go as far as my friend from the great senator from Virginia, Tim Kaine, who said it would be it's the worst thing ever. But I do think if we'll look back and wonder why we withdrew ourselves from that agreement, if indeed we have to agree to something very similar a few years later.
We'll see. I'm not so sure you're right. You're probably wrong.
I hope I'm not.
See.
I hope I'm not. But if I am right,
I
hope you say I'm right.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're right, they're getting a lot. If you're right, they're getting a lot of cash in the mail, so that's good news for them.
Right, but it means that, and perhaps a few other things. We want 20 years. They want less than 10. Is how long they will not enrich uranium.
Well, neither of those things is never, which is what the obligation was.
Right.
But think about it, we're never.
I'm agreeing with you.
They're never going to not do it. They want a nuclear weapon. We've got to bring them into the Western world where they don't want to harm us and our friends. I don't mean to keep going.
It's okay, Harold. We love you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.